Let's get started by creating an empty model. This will allow us to explore some of the basic tools and learn how they work. To begin, click on the left-hand side of the screen and select New button under Models. The program will then prompt you to choose a template. For our purposes, select either mechanical metric template or any metric template you can find here. If you don't see any templates, simply click Browse and find it in the designated location. Now that we have our model set up, let's model our first element. In this explanation, I will give you an overview of the tools located in the Modify tab and the Modify panel on the ribbon. We will be using a wall as an example of an element, but the tools we will be discussing work exactly the same on any other element in Revit. To create a wall, we need to click on the Wall tool located in the Architecture tab, Build panel. When you click on the tool, you will notice a few changes in the interface. Firstly, your cursor will no longer look like a mouse pointer. Instead, it will look like a cross with a dot inside. Secondly, a contextual tab will appear on the ribbon, and a contextual tab is a tab that only shows up in the context of a specific action. Here, that specific action is placing walls. You can recognize a contextual tab by its green color. The name of this tab is Modify/Place Wall. If you click anywhere in your view area while you're in the placing wall mode in the floor plan, you will start creating a wall. Click anywhere to start it and then again to finish a section. Move the cursor to a different direction to draw a wall chain. Clicking escape one time will finish a section, and clicking escape twice will close the placing wall mode. The walls appear flat in the 2D view, but here we can see that we created actually a 3D model. Now here, if you have chosen a mechanical template, you have to change the value of the view property discipline to collaboration or architecture to be able to select a wall, which is an architectural element. When I select a wall, I see some parameters and their values in the properties window. For example, a base constraint. In Revit, a base constraint parameter value will be a level to which an element such as wall is connected or anchored to. Every instance of the family in Revit is somehow referenced in the general space. Each one needs at least one constraint. These constraints are important because they provide a consistent reference point for all elements within the building. Base of the wall can only be defined by a level, and levels are an important concept in the software, so let's take a moment to explain exactly what they are. The three main types of elements in Revit are model elements, annotation elements, and datum elements. Model elements are components that make up the virtual representation of a building or a structure in Revit, and we call them families. These include walls, floors, doors, pipes, manifolds, and all the other components. They create the geometry and affect the appearance of the entire model. Annotation elements, on the other hand, are used to visualize crucial information about the model in views. These include dimensions, text notes, tags, labels, and symbols. To simplify, we can say that a model element will be visible in all views, and annotations will only be visible on views where they have been placed. To better explain the distinction between model elements and annotation elements, let me show you a difference between model lines and annotation lines. Model lines are a part of the 3D model and will be visible in all views, no matter where created. Detail lines are annotations and will only be visible in the view where they have been placed. There's a tool that lets us change lines from detail to model and the other way around. If you hover your cursor over a line, you can see what type of a line it is. Lastly, datum elements are reference planes, levels, grids, and other elements that serve as the basic framework for creating and aligning the model and its components. Datum elements help to structurize the model. These elements are used to establish the overall layout of the building and can be adjusted as needed to accommodate any changes in the design. A level in Revit is a horizontal plane that spreads infinitely in all directions. It represents the global height and is used to mark a story or a key vertical coordination reference. Levels can be created at any desired height and can be adjusted as needed to match the specific design of the building. Given this knowledge, there are several ways to change the height of a wall in Revit. If the wall is unconnected, you can simply adjust the value of the unconnected height parameter or use the shape handles, which are small triangles that appear next to the wall when it's selected. However, the most proper way to adjust the height of the wall is to constrain its top to another level, using that level as a reference to provide a specific height. This will control not only the selected wall, but all the walls in the model that share that same reference. This approach enables you to adjust the height of the walls in the model all at the same time by changing the level height. Let's analyze the modifying tools in Revit that you will find on the ribbon. Let's start with the hints about any tool that you can find in the interface. When you hover over a tooltip will appear that provides a brief description of what the tool does. Sometimes also an animation. If there is a shortcut assigned, you will find it next to the tool name in the brackets. This applies only to system shortcuts, not user-defined ones. Additionally, text prompts may appear at the bottom left of the screen when using certain tools. For example, when I use the Move tool, Revit tells me what I can do next. First, I need to make a selection of whatever I'd like to move. Click Enter, then click to establish Start Point, so select a point to move from, and finally click to move selection to a new location, so select the point to move to. I can move elements by dragging them manually, or I can provide a distance value. For this, I move cursor to pick Move Direction and simply start typing. I click Enter to end the action. Generally, the steps look the same for Copy tool. The Rotate tool, by default, will place the center of rotation in the geometrical center of selection. To change the center of rotation position, click on the Place button at the options bar and click in the View area to wherever you want to place it. To bring the center of rotation back to the original location, click Default. We adjust angle of rotation manually or by typing number of degrees and clicking Enter. The Align tool allows you to align objects with each other. Select the wall you want to align to and then click on the element you want to move to align. When using Trim/Extend to Corner, pick the part of the element that you want to retain. All these tools can be used on one or more elements. So how do we control the selection? To select one element, simply click on it. To select multiple elements, you can use the selection rectangle. Click in the view area to establish a right corner of the rectangle and drag the cursor to the opposite corner. Elements that are touched by the rectangle will be selected. Alternatively, starting the rectangle from the left corner will select all the elements fully enclosed within it. Second method is Ctrl and Shift key. When pressing Ctrl key, you can add individual elements to a selection by clicking on them, and by pressing Shift, subtract them. You can see little symbols of plus and minus appear next to the cursor when we do that. The third method is Filter tool. With a Filter tool, you can easily narrow down your selection by searching for elements belonging to a specific category. Here, let me remind you that every element in Revit belongs to some category, and this list here is what we see. We can quickly find out about how many elements are in our active selection by glancing at the Properties window. The number in the brackets here refers to the number of elements selected, and when I expand that drop-down list, I can see exactly how many elements from each category is selected. There are multiple ways to constrain an object. I already mentioned one, restraining a wall height by anchoring it to a level. Another one is to use dimensions and log them to log a distance or an angle between elements. To do that, pick a dimension line and click an open log symbol. Dimensions inform us about the distance, but we can also use them to change it. First, select an element which location you want to change, then click on the value over the dimension line and type in a new one. Finally, we'll look at how to pin and unpin elements. Pinning elements is essentially making them immovable. This can be done by using the Pin tool. To recognize that element is pinned, look for a tag symbol when you select it. Another indicator is whether the pin or unpin tools on the ribbon are active when you select an element. To unpin an object, go to Unpin tool and select it, or simply click on the tag symbol next to the object in the view area.